Welcome to Kentucky Horsepower, the official podcast of the Kentucky Automobile Dealers Association.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kentucky Horsepower. I'm Jason Wilson, president of KADA, and joining me today is Don Giordano with Merchant Advocates, and he is the Director of Business Development. And we'd like to talk a little bit about a new partnership with KADA and Merchant Advocates. And Don, how are you? Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jason. Doing very well. Appreciate it.
Good. Well, look, let's just jump right into it. And for our dealers' benefits, let's talk a little bit about what it is you all do, and then we can talk a little bit more as far as why we got into this collaboration together. So talk a little bit about what it is you do.
Perfect. So yeah, we are Merchant Advocate, the newest endorsed member benefit provider for the Kentucky Auto Dealer Association. We are an expense reduction company solely focused on the merchant services area. So we are not a credit card processor, and our clients do not change processors. The reason Merchant Advocate was created is the whole credit card processing industry is unregulated and there's no transparency. So Merchant Advocate has become a watchdog in the space. We help dealers save money on their credit card fees without changing processors or banks or system or DMS. Everything stays identical. Merchant Advocate will conduct a complimentary analysis on a business's merchant statements. We will give that dealership a high-level overview of what we uncovered. And if the dealership engages with us, we become an extension of their business, and we engage with their processor, and any savings we generate, we get a portion of. Okay. So it's a true contingency-based money model. It's found money.
Got it. So one of the things that, and again, we've known each other a while now and have been in several meetings together. And I'll tell the folks listening or watching that Don had some great examples of some of the things that they've discovered that, frankly, we wouldn't really think about. I wasn't fully aware of. Some of you all listening or watching might have had firsthand experiences, but a lot of these charges, Don, just go largely unchecked, and they're sort of stealthily in there. Talk a little bit about that and talk about some of the things you found that our folks could relate to.
Sure. So again, processing industry is unregulated. And in our
Which is crazy when you think about it. When you think of first of all, think about all the regulation we've had over the last several years, right? In our industry, just in general. Yet this portion really isn't regulated or isn't really at all. And which is just crazy to think about.
It really is. You know, a business's number one form of income is in an unregulated industry. And it shouldn't be that way. So Again, we became a watchdog. But what we uncovered is the average processor in the US raises rates 3 to 4 times a year.
Okay.
Because it's unregulated, they don't have to call the dealership and tell them we're raising rates. They slip increases into a business's merchant statements. And if they're not challenged or contested within 30 days, they're stuck with that increase. And that's across the board. So that's basically the industry notice that the process could raise rates, just have to challenge them within a grace period of getting your statement. And we audit the account every month to make sure our solutions stay implemented. So It's not a transactional relationship. Once Merchant Advocate is engaged with a dealership, we audit your account every month, line by line, and we make sure our solutions stay implemented. Also make sure nothing else arises on the account. A lot of times we fix an account and the next month we see a new line item that shouldn't be there or inflated rate. So there's a lot of hand-to-hand combat after our initial engagement, but we wear white gloves and we do this very respectfully. It's our job to protect the dealerships. You asked for a couple examples of I always mention, I got a business in northern New Jersey here, a huge refund up towards $70,000 by uncovering a data point entry misconnect. So whenever they were entering the data from this application, there was a decimal point error, and it equated to about $7,000 a month in overages. And
wow!
We covered that, and that's a contractual breach, and we ended up getting that business a huge refund. And it was a restaurant in the town I grew up in, and I used to work at the restaurant. I was good friends with the owner. So it was great to be able to get him that kind of revenue, back from his processor. but we uncover stuff like this all the time. We work with some of the biggest hospitals in the country, and you wouldn't believe the stuff we uncover. You would think like businesses doing millions and millions of dollars would have this figured out.
Right.
Processors, let's face it, a dealership hires a processor. That processor has a vested interest to make sure the dealership is not set up correctly. They want them to overpay because it's more revenue for the processor. And
Sure.
that's the value of having a third-party company like Merchant Advocate come in and review it.
Yeah, I mean, you all really are advocates in this space and in this respect. And look, based on again some of the past meetings we've had, this discussion, it is. I mean, the only word I can think of is just sneaky. How these companies are able to put in these fees and charges, and it's almost like you need to go line by line each statement, lest you miss something, and then it just perpetuates and moves forward and all those things. What I've heard from others, and what I like about your program is, and I think you touched on this early, is that this doesn't require an overhaul, wholesale changes within your organization, changing processors and all those sort of things. Because obviously in the dealer world, we deal with a lot of changes, and part of just running that smooth operation is to limit those things. But really, it just allows you to maximize what you're already using, having a third eye, if you will, take a look, a third viewpoint, looking at this sort of thing, and then calling men out. So when you discover these things, so let's say I'm a dealer, I'm like, Don, come on, help me out here. Here's my statements, and we work something out, and you're going to start reviewing and working on our behalf. And again, it's a savings-based revenue stream, basically. So it's based on you finding things. So talk to me about the process. You folks look at it. I'm looking at your statement, or you're looking at the statements, and you see some things. What are next steps? Like what's that look like?
So when we do the analysis, we request a couple months of their merchant statements from every rooftop they have.
Okay.
We conduct a complimentary analysis, and a big part of what we look at is the optimization details on interchange. So there's two sides to credit card processing. There's interchange, which is basically standard fees that outline the true cost of the transaction. There's 700 plus rules. All the data that goes into that gets you that rate. And then the processing side is the markup. This is the unregulated side. So when we do the analysis, we do a deep dive into the interchange tables to make sure the account is optimized.
Okay.
Then we put the spotlight on the processing side, the Wild West, and we give the dealership a high-level overview of what we uncovered.
Okay.
If they decide to move forward with us, again, there's a simple agreement already pre-negotiated through Kentucky Auto Dealer Association. And our next conversation is with that dealership group. We pull up their statements and we go through it line by line. We show them what's real, what's fake, what we're going to fix, how we're going to fix it, what that fix will equate to in savings. We spell it out for the dealership. And I love this part because it's very educational, eye-opening.
Sure.
Up until now, the dealers, know any business, they don't really understand this. And we're going to open their eyes. So we spell it out for them, and then we engage with their processor on their behalf. And it might be removing hidden fees, or fixing an inflated rate, or optimizing the back end. You wouldn't believe the stuff we uncover, but we do all this on the dealership's behalf. And again, any savings we generate, we get a portion of.
So what's it like working with the processing side, and so how do those conversations go? You call up and I'm like, hey, it's Don Giordano, and they're like, oh, here we go again. I mean, what do those conversations look like? How does that change actually happen?
Great question and great feedback. So we wear white gloves, and we do this very respectfully. And we understand a lot of dealers have their floor plan with their bank.
Yep.
So we give the dealership enough education to point us in the right direction. They might say, let's not push here, but let's push here a little bit more. We don't do anything until we have full approval from the dealership where we want to push. But it's our job to protect the dealership. And they make the decision on, how far they want us to push. But most, I would say 95% of the dealerships we come across want the most savings possible.
Sure.
And again, we wear white gloves, and we do this respectfully. And if it's anything on interchange optimization, it doesn't affect the revenue for the processor at all.
Okay. That's a good point. Great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to note.
Yeah, so the fees on interchange go to the credit card companies and the banks. The processor is not compensated on interchange. So a lot of times when it's on optimization, they'll give us what we need to fix it. It
Yeah.
might be some error messages, or some transactions aren't qualifying for X. So we'll have to get additional data from the processor, but they don't mind because they're not losing any of their revenue. Now, if we catch their hand in the cookie jar on the processing side, then we got to take some money out of their pocket.
That can be a little bit of that can be an uncomfortable conversation. But as you said, you're there advocating literally on behalf of the dealer to go through these items, and it's amazing the impact this can make. Whether you're a single rooftop or whether you have 10, 20 stores, you can feel that throughout the organization in all areas.
Absolutely. No, you touched on having multiple rooftops. I want to mention that we built a dashboard a couple years ago. It's our technology. We own it. It's unbelievably valuable for dealerships that have more than 5 or 10 or 20 locations, because it gives you visibility to all your rooftops on one portal. It's amazing, because up until now, if the dealer has 20 rooftops, they're going to have a different username and login per rooftop. So just pulling data for reporting is a huge lift. We actually work with Brayman, a big one out of Florida by you. They're a huge group. And we have a testimonial from their CFO saying our dashboard saves them tremendous time on their reporting because it's so valuable.
I could think of a number of CFOs that would like to have that tool.
100%. Yeah.
That we work with and deal with. I mean, it is a lot. And again, whether you're a single rooftop operator, but if you have 8, 10, 20 stores, wow. You talk about having a tool like that at your disposal. What a time save.
It's amazing. It really is. And it really shows real-time data. It also teaches best practices. Something we uncovered recently is one of the terminals in the service department, somebody spilled coffee on it and it deactivated the chip or tap reader. So they were swiping everything. Well, if that happens, you get a risk assessment fee. It doubled the transaction fee on that. We were on the phone with the dealership the next day. We got to get your new terminal out. But that's something the processors will never bring to your attention. There's no education on this. The processors aren't teaching accounts how to reduce cost because it's money out of their pocket.
Yeah. Now it makes sense. Look, this was a big reason why it made sense to me as KADA to partner with you. Again, we want to bring things to our dealers that will help them in their day-to-day business beyond just selling product or partnering in that way, but find savings and find real tangible savings that can impact very positively their bottom line. So
absolutely,
we are, Don, excited to be working with you on this. We're going to send this out to everybody. There'll be contact information, et cetera, that you all can reach out to receive this, to make sure you can inquire about taking a look at this and seeing what this group, Merchant Advocates, could potentially do for you all. So, Don, I appreciate you being here. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Yes, thank you, Jason. One more thing I want to mention. Again, Merchant Advocate is not a credit card processor. We help businesses save without switching. But one thing that came a little bit more prevalent that I'm noticing in the southern state dealerships is surcharging. Okay. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And I've looked at a bunch of dealerships in the surrounding states of you guys that are doing surcharging wrong, or doing surcharging where they're paying a lot more than they should.
Okay.
Because when you surcharge, you're still going to pay to transact debit, and there still could be miscellaneous fees that shouldn't be in your statement. So any account surcharging, we can also look at and help. Doesn't matter if you're doing traditional processing or surcharging, we can still look at your statements and provide an estimated savings. And again, that's done at no risk, no obligation, no cost.
Great point. That's a big part of things right now. So I appreciate you adding that to our conversation. So our dealers are aware of that. So with that, Don, I think that's about our time, but I appreciate you joining us today here virtually. We're excited about this partnership, excited to move forward, and looking forward to hearing some great feedback from our dealers, as I know you have had in other states where you've been able to help folks out.
Thank you very much, Jason. Really appreciate it, and look forward to having a great year with you guys.
Thank you much. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time on Kentucky Horsepower, the official podcast of KADA, and we'll see you down the road.